Hello everyone, McGee here with another draft battle analysis video and recap, this time looking at my week 5 match in the BBL against SharkFinnigan and his Dallas Mudsdales. As it stands, I am 3-1 in the league after suffering a pretty sizable defeat last week against Frandy. I was badly 6-0'd as I was not able to get any of my win conditions activated. He had good answers for everything and just shut me down. So I'm looking to rebound strong from that and kind of reassert myself as a contender in this league. But before we get into my battle against Shark, we're going to take a look at the team he had available to him and the pieces I brought to best address that. So, as you may have already noticed, I had a very strong reaction to losing last week and threw out about half of my team and tried starting over and creating new pieces. This has been an issue I've expressed since the beginning of the season that I was dissatisfied with my draft and what the pieces I had gotten were, and I didn't think they all meshed well. And so I'd been kind of looking for an opportunity to cast some of them aside and just restart and find something better to work with, and that loss was a really good incentive to do so. So I threw out a lot of my options, rebuilt my core. In fact, I worked with Shark on a couple of trades. We have been working together throughout this league in terms of prep and communication and draft ideas. So he's been someone I've been bouncing ideas off of. He was wanting to make some changes as well because he was at 1-3 and looking to mix things up. And so we were able to coordinate a couple of trades and some free agency action. And I was able to successfully get his Jirachi as he was making some changes to the psychic types he was using. And he didn't really need that extra steal as badly. He had Excadrill, who was already a really reliable steal. And so I was able to add Jirachi to my roster in place of my Necrozma. I brought in Tapu Bulu, Volcanion, Mega Sableye, and Toxtricity. I tossed out, I believe it was Rotom Frost, my Mega Venusaur, and then a couple of other pieces that are not coming to my head at the moment. But I was needing to make some of these changes. I felt like they would be helpful to me as the season went on. Some of the things I was aware of, and the one factor that obviously Frandy exposed last week is that I struggled to manage hazards once they hit the field. I didn't have a good reliable defog option. I had been kind of relying on the fact that I wasn't weak to rocks and people didn't have a lot of spikes options to skirt by in some of my matches, but I still was running into hazard problems in many weeks. And so adding things like Volcanion, who has defog, Mega Sableye, who is good anti-hazard, and then just some good hazard setters of my own. So Jirachi's a pretty good rocker. Um, and then, yeah, I guess that's just really it. Jirachi was a good rock option to add to the team. Plus, Smeargle still hanging around as a low tier. And then I maintained Florges. So I had a couple extra defog options now. Just better ability to manage hazards because Rotom Frost could defog, but Rotom Frost has a really hard time coming to any match. So I find myself a little bit better situated to handle hazards, especially if I can bring Mego Sableye. And I looked at my remaining schedule, and there was not a lot of oppressive fairies to contend with. And so because of that, I felt like Mega Sableye could be a really useful member of the team going through this last 5 games of the season. But that's my team. Shark made some adjustments as well. He added a Gothitelle over his Jirachi that he traded me. Uh, downgraded his Mega Tyranitar into a Tyranitar. And then I believe that was it. The Breloom and the Dracovish already existed. The Magnezone actually was an addition as well. He threw out his Regieleki, which he had been using. But obviously Regieleki takes a lot of predictive work to make successful, and he wasn't having a ton of success with that. Magnezone just a little easier to do some kind of magnet or some magnet pull trapping or sturdy or just whatever kind of set he needs. So he made that adjustment. But looking at his team, there's a lot to contend with in this match that's going to be problematic for me. The Rayquaza is just a hard thing to check. I only have 2 answers to him clicking Dragon Ascent. One of them is Jirachi, who is a solid option. The other is Toxtricity, who is still going to be pretty reliably 2-hit KO'd by Dragon Ascent, so it's not a real answer. So really, it falls on Jirachi as my only way to check Rayquaza from just spamming one button and annihilating me. I, however, am also aware of the fact that Rayquaza has access to V-Create, so Jirachi is going to have a hard time addressing that. And so Rayquaza is just in a really, really good spot to annihilate me. Something that is also notable in this match is Shark is very familiar with my Pyukumuku strategies. He's been exposed to them a lot. I've talked with him about quite a few of them over this league and a couple of other leagues I've run him in. And so I know Shark is going to check a lot of Pyukumuku calcs. And one of the most notable calcs is that he needs a life orb on Rayquaza to two-hit KO Pyukumuku. Without a life orb, it does not two-hit KO Pyukumuku. So I feel very confident in that fact that he's going to probably stick a life orb on Rayquaza so that I cannot switch Pyukumuku into any Rayquaza attacks. I'm really, really aware of that. And so that's going to affect how I get to my team when we get to the team build. Greninja is a concern because I don't have a great switch into Greninja. Pyukumuku can be an answer short term. If it's Specs Greninja or if it's Toxic Spikes, anything like that, then Pyukumuku starts losing its validity as an answer very quickly. Volcanion can handle it pretty well. And then Tapu Bulu is an okay answer, but if it's not choice locked, it has a very easy time just clicking Gunk Shot the turn afterwards on Tapu Bulu and just annihilating Tapu Bulu. So I know that answer is very, very limited, so I'm concerned about its ability to cause a lot of pressure in this game. Sylveon, mostly concerned about its ability to wall things out. I'll get into my Zygarde set, but basically Sylveon's the one piece that is problematic to my Zygarde. Really, it impacts how I team build. I can't sub because Sylveon has Hyper Voice, and so that doesn't care about the substitute. So Sylveon's really impacting how I can prep for my game because it just has an ability to pressure some of my pieces really well. My Pheromosa also does not enjoy the Sylveon. It denies both of its stab options. It has access to Poison Jab, but it's going to have a tough time quickly annihilating Sylveon with Poison Jab unless Sylveon's already pretty frail. Gothitelle, can run Shadow Tag and is one of the most concerning pieces I'm going to deal with in this match. Because if I give Gothitelle a spot to trap something with Shadow Tag, it can just set up and annihilate me. Hyper aware of that potential, so I'm going to try to reflect my team build accordingly to make sure Gothitelle is not in a position to come in safely on something and trap it and set up. Excadrill, mostly only concerning if it's in sand because I have a really hard time dealing with its stab options. Zygarde's about the only thing that can probably be safely in 3-hit KO range without too much trouble. Pheromosa's not going to be able to handle it. Jirachi can't handle it. Tapu Bulu can't really handle an Iron Head, and it also has access to Poison Jab, so Tapu Bulu's really not happy. Florges, same reasons. Volcanion, same reasons. Halucha is more of an offensive sweep counter sweep, not so much something that's going to want to come in on an Excadrill unless I'm already in a position to activate my Grassy Seed or something like that so that I can outspeed it. Indeedee, not going to help me. Pyukumuku, it can get into 2-hit KO range with like a Life Orb, Adamant Nature, so I'm not really liking those odds. And then Mega Sableye, unless I am in a position to Will-O-Wisp before the Mega Evolution, again, not a good spot. So really concerned with what Excadrill can do here if I give it too much of a window. So I'm going to try to minimize that. Moltres shuts down my Pheromosa, doesn't let me do anything effective against it. My best move for it is Shockwave. And so I'm not liking that situation. I don't want to get burnt because I don't have great windows to get aromatherapy in this match. And so I'm going to be really worried about that. Tyranitar does not have a good matchup. Don't really expect Tyranitar to come, but it's there to maybe set Sand, which would feed well into Excadrill or feed well into Dracovish, who I do have really strong answers for. Volcanion answers it really well. Tapu Bulu answers it really well. Pyukumuku can answer it decently well, although not perfectly well. Magnezone, its potential to trap Jirachi is a main concern. Obviously, Jirachi doesn't want to get trapped unless I'm in a position to run U-turn. And then Breloom, kind of interesting, but not super concerning just because it has a hard time clicking stab options. And if it can't click stab options very well, it's in a bad spot. And DD kind of annihilates Breloom as well, unless it's running like a sub-seed set. So I'm in a okay position to handle that, but he has a lot of things that concern me. Gothitelle can make me auto lose the game. Rayquaza can make me auto lose the game. Excadrill can make me auto lose the game if the situations are created for him. So I need to be able to manage all three of those. So we'll get into the team I brought to kind of handle that. Zygarde, I'm opting for a choice band this week. I can't sub. I can't really set up that reliably because then Sylveon gets in for free and can cause pressure, or I'm just not in a position to go to town right away because he has things that can burn me without too much trouble. So I'm just going to click a choice band. Enough speed to outspeed Dracovish outside of Sand unless it's running a Scarf. And then 1,000 Arrows is basically the only move I'm aiming to click, but I have Outrage, Extreme Speed for late game situations, then Iron Tail. If I need to hard call a Sylveon switch in, Iron Tail can really do a lot of damage. But 1,000 Arrows, if the Sylveon isn't basically max defense, max HP, there's a pretty good chance I can 2-hit KO it, unless it's able to protect itself into enough health to be able to Wish. So I like where that stands. It minimizes Sylveon's ability to come in as a hard answer to it, and Sylveon doesn't always want to run max defense. So if Shark doesn't do that, then my Zygarde's just in a really good position to hit KO it, and then there are no other switch-ins to 1,000 Arrows at that point. Everything else is 2-hit KO'd reliably. The Pheromosa running a Choice Scarf, enough speed to outspeed Adamant, Excadrill, and Sand. I don't think he would bring Jolly Excadrill if he was going to run a Sand team. Just because I can still outspeed that Jolly Excadrill in Sand if I ran the Naive Nature or something like that that gives a speed boost. So I don't think he's going to run a Jolly Excadrill because he still can't absolutely outspeed Pheromosa, and he needs that extra damage output to break Pyukumuku. So I'm not expecting it, and so I'm going to call it accordingly. U-turn, close combat, typical stab moves. Ice Beam for Rayquaza because Ice Beam can do enough to one-hit KO it, and Triple Axle has risk that I don't want to do against something I need to make sure I absolutely reliably KO. And then Poison Jab pretty much just for the Sylveon so I can fish for poisons. Opting for a negative attack or negative defense nature over a negative special defense nature, so I'm in a position to survive 3 water shurikens from a Specs Greninja. I need to not be a negative nature there to survive 3 of them. So I'm in an okay spot to manage that as well. Pyukumuku is doing one of the weirdest sets I've ever done. We're going to ignore these special attacks EVs. They didn't matter. I just didn't want the Showdown yelling at me about unused EVs. I'm running 100 HP, 252 special defense, and then a gentle nature with 0 attack or 0 defense IVs and a negative defense nature. As I said before, I know Shark is going to run this calc and see that Life Orb Dragon Ascent reliably 2-hit KOs Pyukumuku, which means I can't switch in with Pyukumuku on it. And so if that's the case, I'd rather just have Pyukumuku get immediately 1-hit KO'd by the Rayquaza. So the situation I'm trying to create with Pyukumuku is essentially it comes in on an expected Dragon Ascent from a Life Orb Rayquaza and is 100% KO'd, loses all its health, activates Innards out, so it does all that damage back, 276 damage back, plus the Rocky Helmet damage because Dragon Ascent is a contact move, plus the Life Orb damage. It has a pretty good chance to one-hit KO the Rayquaza. It depends if the Rayquaza has taken any damage this game. I'll get to that in a second with the Jirachi and how I was going to ensure it took 1 bit of Life Orb damage in advance, because once that happens, it pretty much gets KO'd. But basically, this Pyukumuku's one job was to ensure I don't get swept by Rayquaza. It's going to come in and just die at the first available opportunity so that Rayquaza doesn't sweep me. And then the max special defense helps to handle Greninja a bit as well. And then Mirror Coat for Greninja just to hit it hard back, recover in case I don't get the situation I need to get my health back for whatever reason. Toxic, same general applications that Toxic normally has. And then Baton Pass, so if I come into a situation where I'm not wanting to stay in and I know that it's likely that the Gothitelle comes in, I click Baton Pass on that expected opportunity so that I can get Pyukumuku off the field and not be trapped, because otherwise I risk getting taunted and I'm in a really bad position if that happens. Although the Innards Out will help to deal with some of that, because I'll eventually be 1-hit KO'd by the Gothitelle and I'll do a ton of damage back with the Innards Out. And then I might be able to quickly revenge kill it afterwards, but I'm not wanting to create that scenario, so I'm going to try to avoid that. Actually, I'm going to skip ahead to the Jirachi to explain what I was talking about. Jirachi is running an Akaberry. So Jirachi is a really reliable way to scout what the item is on the Rayquaza. If Rayquaza hits the field, my first mon I'm actually going to go into is Jirachi, because no one move that Rayquaza is going to click is going to one-hit KO the Jirachi. Jirachi scouts what it is. If it V creates, then Jirachi will survive that. It'll activate its Akaberry, and then I can see if it's Life Orb. And if I know it's Life Orb at that point in the game, I can always throw Pyukumuku away, and Pyukumuku can deal with that Rayquaza because it has a little chip on it now. So I can kind of use Jirachi as a scout for that. pretty heavily invested in defense, some attack to help deal with Gothitelle in case I get trapped by it, a little bit of special defense, and then some speed to, I believe, I can't remember what I was trying to creep, but I think I was just trying to creep, because I really should be 252. I believe Gothitelle maxes out at 251, so that was a slight miscalc on my part. I needed to throw an extra 8 EVs into speed so I could outspeed max speed Gothitelle. And then body slam Ironhead. In case I get trapped by Gothitelle, I just start body slamming and I start Ironheading, and I just hope RNG saves the day and I get out of there by basically para flinching the Gothitelle into oblivion. And then rest and sleep talk just to get health back in case I'm running into issues where I need to get health back and I'm just stuck on there and we're in this weird 1v1. But yeah, he's there to essentially scout what Rayquaza is doing and then confirm that it's the item I think it's going to be if the situation arises. Tapu Bulu, Stone Edge, Taunt specifically for Gothitelle, so Gothitelle doesn't set up on me. Horn Leech and then Substitute. If I can get behind a sub, then I'm in a pretty good spot to Horn Leech, and Stone Edge is for Moltres pretty specifically, although it helps with Rayquaza as well. And that way I have a way to exert some pressure. I'm in an okay spot to deal with Dracovish, where Dracovish isn't reliably 2-hit KOing me, unless it's, I think, Banded, Adamant, and it's not a Sand one. It's just a standard Strongjaw one. A little speed investment to creep in case Gothitelle's trying to creep past me. I'm in a spot to creep some of that creep. And then, yeah, he's just really there to help deal with Dracovish a little bit, help deal with the Sand Core a little bit, although he can't handle Extra that well. Volcanion, heavy duty boots to just be able to deal with hazards as those are coming in. Defog to clear hazards because I'm very wary that he might try to put toxic spikes down, and I'm in a really bad spot if that happens. Sludge Bomb to deal with Sylveon, try to poison it because that shuts Sylveon down. Steam Eruption, just as a good general stab, it hits a lot of things pretty hard. And then Roar, again, I'm worried about Gothitelle, so I don't want Gothitelle getting too much free opportunity against me. And I need to be able to roar it out in case it gets on the field and tries to trap me. And then a lot of EV investment that is somewhat strategic, but not always. Pretty much max HP because I'm going to need it. Decent amount of defense investment. I believe that put me in position to live like a Jolly Earthquake or an Adamant Earthquake from the Excadrill if I needed it to. I need to double check that calc. A sprinkle of special attack in there, and then some special defense to really help deal with the Greninja some as I need it. And then just a little sprinkle in speed in case Gothitelle is just trying to creep me. So I out creep the creep, hopefully. But that's the team. That's what I was putting together. A lot of things I'm trying to contest with in this match because I'm putting so much effort into making sure Gothitelle can't trap me and KO me and just set up in front of me. Zygarde clicking 1,000 arrows prevents Gothitelle from coming in. I can safely click U-turn as long as I don't have to contest with Moltres or I don't attack at all with Pheromosa. Just otherwise, I'm at risk of being caught on like a close combat, and then Gothitelle comes in and wins the game. So I need to be wary of that. Baton Pass on the predict with Gothitelle coming in, Taunt for Gothitelle, Roar for Gothitelle, and then flinch hacks and para hacks with the Jirachi for Gothitelle. So pretty much all these ways to answer Gothitelle, which isn't even one of his Ubers. He's got Greninja, who I think I'm okay against, and then Rayquaza, who I have one strong answer with, and I'm otherwise in a lot of trouble, basically just counting on speed at that point. Although extreme speed from a Life Orb is going to one-hit KO me as well. So it really pretty much all falls on Pyukumuku to manage a Rayquaza from just tearing me apart. But that's the team. We'll get into the battle, kind of where I was going for in this match. I'm going to lead my Pheromosa. I've lead it very specifically. So my goal here is to bait in Moltres on turn 2. And so I know if I lead Pheromosa and he's worried about some kind of physical set, he might throw in his Moltres to try to burn my Pheromosa. I expect that would be his decision on turn 1, just wanting to try to put me in a bad spot early. And so my goal is to hard call that and just get my Zygarde onto the field for free. However, he actually stays in and tries to surf. So what this tells me on turn 1 is he expected to go first, which means he is definitely a Scarf set. My Pheromosa is still going to outspeed that, which is very nice for me. He doesn't know yet that I'm Scarf because I ran away. And it just gives me some good turn 1 information. Catches me off guard. Did not expect Greninja to be a Scarf set. I expected Spec set just as a breaker. But it really kind of changes how I want to play this game. It's going to put some unwanted damage on my Zygarde early, which is unfortunate. He's going to switch into Sylveon. I'm going to switch into Volcanion on the expectation that uh, Greninja either attacks again because he did a lot of damage, or he switches into something else like Sylveon, which came in, and I'm in a really good spot to answer Sylveon with Volcanion. I'm going to Sludge Bomb because I don't expect him to stay, and I know he's not going to risk taking a Steam Eruption or any kind of stab attack with his Excadrill, so Sludge Bomb's a really safe click. Really nice that I'm able to poison this Gothitelle. Really shuts it down early what it wants to do, and then I'm going to click Steam Eruption on the prediction that he either stays in and does something, or he switches out again. And Steam Eruption is going to hit this Rayquaza for a critical hit, which is huge, and then a burn, which is extra huge. Because now this Rayquaza is just in a really bad spot. And the Mon that I was most concerned about tearing me apart in this game is slapped with status. I'm not going to pretend some RNG isn't in my favor right now. I have successfully burnt the Gothitelle on the first Sludge Bomb, and then I followed it up with a crit burn on the Rayquaza on the very next turn. So I've gotten 2 bits of very helpful status very quickly thanks to my Volcanion. Rayquaza's in a really bad spot now. It Dragon Dances, not ideal, but I'm able to manage it because it's poisoned or burned right now, so it's only half damage. He Dragon Ascents. I probably should have fled to Jirachi. Jirachi is not going to do a ton in this game, so Jirachi was actually a good piece to let take that damage. So I do regret sending my Volcanion or keeping my Volcanion in for that. I think that was a misplay by me. When I had good options to run to, I don't know why I stayed in. So I do regret that choice. But I'm able to get Rayquaza off the field really early in this game. Really impactful for me. Greninja's going to come in. Dark Pulse just try to do lots of damage. He does quite a bit. I don't need Pyukumuku anymore in this game, but I also don't want to give Gothitelle any room to do anything. So I'm going to predictively click Baton Pass on that to get Zygarde back in for free. Zygarde's just able to immediately exert pressure and KO this Gothitelle. So I'm able to get Gothitelle off the field. So 2 of the 3 most concerning pieces that he had are now out of play, which is really impactful for me. Gothitelle isn't around anymore to trap me, so it gives me more freedom to click some moves with Mons. Pyukumuku can stay on the field and get himself killed whenever he wants. Pheromosa can click other attacks if I can deal with his Moltres. And then I'm just not as restricted anymore in my move options. Sylveon comes in, pretty much forces me back into Volcanion, which he's going to call and click Calm Mind. I'm going to Sludge Bomb. Very fortunate to be able to proc this Kebia berry early. It helps me for Pheromosa later in the game that I don't have to contest with this berry now. And then because this is my kind of game, I get the poison on it immediately as well. So 3 moves that can inflict status, all inflict status on their first opportunity. So really fortunate RNG for me there. Obviously, for those that may have seen my last match in the PGF, I was struggling to get discharge paralysis the entire game. So things are evening back out, I guess, for me again, which is nice. Sylveon's in a bad spot. I'm going to just roar it out so that it can't keep setting up on me. The Moltres is going to come in. I'm just going to click Steam Eruption because I would want to do as much damage as possible, maybe get a lucky critical hit. Probably should have fished for a Sludge Bomb in hindsight, just see if I can get some poison on there. It was that kind of RNG for me that game. 1,000 arrows on the Moltres just to see what it's going to do. It has Will-O-Wisp for me, which smart tech really shuts down what my Zygarde's able to do. And then something me and Shark discussed afterwards that he wasn't aware of at the time is that how the mechanics for Thousand Arrows work. So when Thousand Arrows first hits a Mon, like Moltres, that would be super effective to it once it's grounded, it doesn't actually inflict super effective damage on the first hit. So when it's being grounded, it's just a neutral move. And so he didn't realize that in the damage calculations that Moltres wasn't taking super effective damage the first time. So he thought he was in a position to survive my next 1,000 arrows because he thought it peaked at, I believe it was like 50%. And so when it didn't account for the super effective damage and it does this time, then Moltres is just going to get KO'd. It was something that caught Shark by surprise. He wasn't aware of how that mechanic worked, and so it was just unfortunate for him. Greninja's going to come back in. I'm going to come back in with Pyukumuku because that's my safe option. He's going to click Ice Beam. I'm just going to Baton Pass, I believe, right again because I'm in a spot to do so. No, I recover because in case I need to deal with that Excadrill in case it starts setting up, then I can be in a better position to do so when I'm full health. I'm going to Baton Pass again, though, to Jirachi. He's wished. I'm going to Body Slam because that is the expected mon to switch in, or Excadrill, which I can paralyze with Body Slam. Either way feels like the right move to click with my Jirachi. And because again, it's my kind of game, I get the paralysis. At least in this case, the body slam had a 60% chance to paralyze, so greater than half. And so it felt like a more reasonable status to have happen. But just the sheer amount of status that's happened in this game has just been really, really unfortunate for Shark, really in my favor. Not something I would ever get in a repeat match. So just really fortunate for me. I get the paralyze on Greninja, which is what I wanted. Shark's now doing the thing I'm really nervous about, which is putting these toxic spikes up, which just make my life really difficult. Because I lost my only defog option, and Jirachi is the only thing that comes in safely on those. Actually, I'm sorry, Zygarde as well because he's burnt. But otherwise, I'm just in a really bad spot to deal with these toxic spikes. So I'm going to baton pass out because that's my best option. Zygarde comes in freely on those for now, and then I can click Thousand Arrows here. He doesn't really have a switch in. It does 95% to this Excadrill just because of how much banded Thousand Arrows can do. Iron Head, he's trying to fish for a flinch, which he doesn't get because, again, RNG is just only one-sided in this match. I do feel bad for him. Sylveon comes in. I'm just going to 1,000 Arrows here because that's the best option for me. Pretty much break that Sylveon to a point of no recovery. And then I'm going to 1,000 Arrows again. Critical hit because, again, it's my kind of game where nothing seems to go right for Shark and everything seems to go my way. 1,000 Arrows for, again, because I'm just trying to sack my Zygarde at this point to come in safely with my Pheromosa. Sylveon's at 12%. This is at 45%. I'm in a pretty good spot to just click Poison Jab and win the game. And I know he's locked in at Dark Pulse because I'm pretty convinced after the turn one decision he made that this is Scarf or not. Yeah, this is Scarf Greninja because he thought he could 1v1 it. And so I'm just going to click Poison Jab here because I can deal with one Dark Pulse without too much issue in case I don't want to KO it. But he switches out into Sylveon. I get the attack boost. He comes back in with the Greninja, which is paralyzed. I'm in a good spot to deal with Water Shuriken. Not that it matters. And I'm able to get the Poison Jab KO. So overall, a 4-0 win, not at all reflective of the match because I just had an insane amount of RNG playing in my favor. Shark just was getting bad rolls every which way. Um, I knew he was going to be familiar with some of my playstyles, so I was trying to be as interesting as possible with some of my options. The Pyukumuku was my really only good way to deal with that Rayquaza, if not for the burn that I got on that first opportunity, because that really shut down Rayquaza. And he did not bring Wish Cleric Sylveon. He brought Wish, but it looked like he was running Calm Mind, Mystical Fire, Wish, and Moonblast. And so Sylveon was just going to try to hit the field and break me. But really, really lucky that I got some of the RNG I did. I think Pyukumuku would have gotten his window against Rayquaza if not for the burn, but I'm happy I didn't have to use that. The Gothitelle was concerning, but I had good answers to it. I was able to execute all those answers appropriately and never give Gothitelle a window because the early Sludge Bomb really shut down Gothitelle from wanting to 1v1 the Volcanion. I successfully called it switching in on the Pyukumuku and Baton passed out, and then Zygarde was just able to clean it up really easily. Zygarde was able to put in good work again this week. I think he picked up 3 kills, Excadrill, Moltres, and Gothitelle, so he's coming back into his own after a quiet few weeks because he shined really strong in week 1 with like 6 KOs and then has been much more quiet since. Pheromosa's entered the field and made an immediate impact. Really satisfied with Pheromosa. 2 nice KOs, proving its value as a good cleanup mon and doing exactly what I wanted it to do. Jirachi got its RNG that I want Jirachi to get, so good on Jirachi. And then Tapu Bulu did not hit the field, so I'll have to see what he can do in future weeks. But I moved to 4-1 in an 8-week season. I am probably 1 win away from securing a playoff berth, so I'm going to try to finish the season strong and be in a really good position to make a deep playoff run. So yeah, stay tuned for more videos.